Julius Castle, and I'd like to comment on the current affair program that was done on me on the 23rd, Friday the 23rd. We've had over 40 years of recording on us, of different reports and recordings on us. In the 40 years, this would have been the most biased and the most inaccurate recording that we've had so far. I'd just like to correct some of the inconsistencies and some of the things that were wrong about it. The current affair were given all the documentation about these different things, and in fairness, they recorded one line out of what I got, two lines. But my main objections as to what has happened to me, what's gone wrong with me, is that they showed the letter where I've been given approvals for different structures, for different dwellings. These approvals occurred. The document will show. I'll put the document on that these approvals were given by two senior council inspectors. They were only issued after reinforcement discussion from neighbours, and between the lot of us, we worked out 20 years ago, almost to the day, we worked out a compromise, and this compromise included these particular dwellings. Now these dwellings are now to be altered and demolished, because council now insists that the approvals weren't approvals at all. In fact, that the approvals were only illegal, and because they're illegal, they now have to be demolished. Apparently, the only approval that is now acceptable is the fact that you have a stamp plan of the exact structure that's there. But council have given us their own documentation, which say that in the 80s and the 90s that this wasn't the case at all. In the 80s and the 90s, if they approved a plan and everything on it was legal, then they would stamp it. If they didn't stamp it, then it meant that it was illegal. So out of these approvals, the ones that we're expected to alter and change now is on page 2 of the document that will be supplied. The three things that we were expected to do from them was to complete the carport in a workmanship manner. That now has to be changed. The screening that we were ordered to put up has now got to be removed. And item 3 on the letter also, the completion of the dwelling roof. This completion of the dwelling roof, in fact, is our disabled bathroom, and it also now has to be now demolished. The other documentation that is going to be shown on the, which I thought was unfair, was the next document that will be shown will be a photograph. It's the only thing the council signed, the only part of the demolition order that they've ever signed, and they added this particular structure. It has a date of the 23rd of the 10th, 12, which is the day, the last day of the court case. And in fact, on the last day of the court case, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when it had the case had finished, we were packing up. They added this structure to be demolished, and it is my opinion that even though the other two courts have approved that, the council should not and could not add major structures to be demolished after the case has been resolved, as I have no chance of defending this particular structure. My other gripes in this, the letters that were handed to council, that were handed to current affair, and was a handout to the public. The next page shows that the unauthorised structures reads from the demolition orders. All these structures have to be demolished because they've been built on land are not shown on any diagrams, plans or approvals held by council. Well, in actual fact, council did hold plans and approvals and diagrams, and in fact the absurdity of the whole thing is that they had almost 1,000 of these plans and diagrams and approvals on their possession, but the order that they issued was that it wasn't shown on any. In other words, an outright lie. And I brought this up in the court case and called it an outright lie, that they did have the documentation, yet they filled out a demolition order. My next gripe on the whole thing is that why didn't I simply obey the original demolition orders? Well, the original demolition orders were in fact covered the whole property except for the original house. They covered our swimming pool, which had been approved in 1972 and had been settled and had been filled with water for over 40 years, and they covered everything else that was on the property, and most of the things we were able to prove that were legal and we did have plans for and therefore did not have to be demolished. And the only ones that I now have to demolish are the ones for which they say that I haven't been able to prove. And the word actually uses the word approval. You hold approvals, but the fact that we cannot produce the original stamped document, we have now been ordered now to demolish. But council should not have been allowed to issue a blanket demolition order over the property and then proceed with the demolition of the things that we couldn't prove. Other documentation that we have there, the main one obviously would have to be our search warrant. The search warrant that was served on us was of a criminal nature. They were looking for two things. They were looking for illegal structures and they were looking for vermin. And the courts have ruled now that this criminal warrant can now be issued. If they're looking either for criminals or for cockroaches, they can come in under this warrant. And obviously the best time to come in for cockroaches is going to be 2 o'clock in the morning. No problem about breaking the door down, no problem about forcing entry. That's all ruled to be okay. The other problem was the thing was unsafe. Well, we handed the public, I think there's 7 engineering certificates here to prove that the place was safe, and council did not produce one certificate to say it was unsafe. Yet the court ruled that it was unsafe, and we didn't have engineering certificates for everything. We didn't have an engineering certificate for our trampoline, nor the lid that was on it. We didn't have certificates for ladders standing up against walls, or we didn't have any for workbenches or for shelving. We didn't have engineering, but the main structures that we required, we did have engineering certificates for them, but council did not produce one. Yet the court ruled that it was unsafe and disregarded all our engineering certificates. And Brady Hall's just made a farce out of that, to run out from under a building that's been there for over 20 years now. And in actual fact, I actually can lift quite heavy weights out of that building. You'd have no problem with lifting a 500 kilo motor. That's how solid that the roofing that he ran out from under is. The other document that was handed out to the public is a plan, 871488, and council have no idea that this plan exists. If you check the record, I've got a record of council documents that has been supplied. They do not know that this plan even exists. If they don't know that the plan exists, this may in fact be the plan which contains the approvals that we were required. Another document that I have here is the list of orders that has been, demolition orders that has been given us against us, and there's been a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different lots of orders, and from that anything and everything has to be demolished. And at no stage do we really know what we were doing, and when we asked for clarification, we're told that none was required, that it was all quite self-explanatory. It's very wrong, the fact that we have to prove that we are innocent. You would think the council would have to prove that we're guilty, and our innocence cannot even be established by the fact that we have approvals. That does not require, that is not an innocent thing. So the court had basically two choices. They had to decide between the council demolition orders, which were not signed, and they had to decide, whereas the Kudrinskis provided approvals which were signed by council, and the court decided that they're going to follow the demolition orders, the unsigned demolition orders. The other documentation that we have to produce, we actually had a stop work order issued on our initial plan, the one that we're going on. It shows you the stop work order. It says that you must supply the following information. Well, clearly the building was finished 30 years ago, so we must have supplied the information, but they don't have the information and the amendments, and they're just saying that when they were quizzed in court about it, they couldn't remember what was involved there. But despite that, they're still going along with the original plans, which were changed. There are a number of other aspects of information which I will take up in the next session. for which, but this was the only information was handed out to the public on the day that we changed ourselves, to the court, to the building. Okay, Mills, that's it.